Hope everybody is doing well on this particular Monday afternoon. That's right. It's time for the radio show with Mark Lee once again, and we're looking forward to another exciting show and all in that kind of way. So definitely looking forward to some great conversations and definitely some amazing insights. And we're going to see what's going on in that space and what is happening with people's lives. I do know that here in Durham, North Carolina, it is definitely summertime because we're having temperatures around the 90s, definitely some humid temperatures. And of course, we've had some rain showers and some more may be on their way on this particular afternoon. And of course, yours truly cannot have summer without this one big birthday party. They think that they're having it for the 4th of July. They think they're having it for the environment and all of that. But we all know that the Eno Festival is secretly Mark Lee's big birthday party and all in that way. So that'll be coming our way on this Saturday. It'll be on Saturday and on the 4th. So it'll be on Saturday and on Tuesday. It is a great musical festival. It has a great cultural events, some amazing food, and some amazing organizations that are out there sharing knowledge about what they are doing and all in that space. And of course, some of the politicians are out there as well. So it'll be interesting. And I've been involved for multiple decades now and definitely always have a good time. There have been a few that have been mild weather, and I have definitely enjoyed those. But for the most part, I know it's the 4th of July weekend and it's going to be probably brutally hot and all in that way. So I'm always aware of that, even when I do these events that I enjoy doing in that space. But I've got an amazing guest that's going to be joining me. I've got a couple of guests, but I'm going to bring on the one that is related to me and all in that space, that being my cousin who is doing some amazing work. And he's got his business partner with him, that being Greg Hodgins, and also Emmett Spurlock. So we're going to bring on Emmett, my cousin, the second oldest, because I'm the oldest of those. And like I said, I'm going to hit that big 6'1" on July 1st and all along those lines. So looking forward to that 61st birthday and definitely looking forward to that. And I think Emmett's got me by just a matter of a year or two, and I have that older space, and then he got me on the second rank and all in that space. And then I think it's after that is my younger brother, and then it's after that is his younger brother. And then after that, we go way down the line to folks that are maybe a decade or two younger than us and all in that space. So definitely looking for this conversation because I don't know if Emmett remembers this, but I am a fan of science fiction. And being a fan of science fiction, definitely know about Star Trek and Star Wars and a number of other things in that space. So always been a fan of Star Trek, Star Wars, and all along those lines. So have been following that notion that maybe we'll get to warp speed and be able to travel at supersonic speeds and all of that kind of stuff. But apparently the company that Emmett is working with is doing some work in that space. But I'm going to let Emmett tell you more about what he's got going on and all in along those lines. And of course, we'll bring on his partner. And I've got another guest on as well. And then we may have some others that join us here also on the radio show with Mark Lee. So how are you doing, cousin Emmett? And how is life treating you? And how are things going in your world? Think Emmett can hear me. So hopefully Emmett can hear me. Maybe he can't. I'm gonna bring out his partner and we're gonna see if we can't get the audio working with Greg and all in that way and all in along those lines. So I'll bring on Greg, and it seems like Emmett's having some things there, and he says he can't hear us unfortunately, but hopefully
No, I
now you
can.
can hear us. Now
No,
you
I
can
can.
hear. Okay. Glad you could hear us there. How's it going, Emmett? Like I said, I was giving the whole spiel just about me being the oldest and hitting that big 6'1" on July 1st and all along those lines. And then you're right behind me and all in that space. And I was telling how the Eno Festival, which is a festival that I've been emceeing for a number of years, might as well just be my big birthday party. They don't know that, but I make that joke every year that it's just one big birthday party for me and all along those lines. So how are you doing, cousin Emmett? And I am very fascinated by this company that you and Greg have formed. And for those that didn't meet you the last time that you were on and know some of your own background in the military, and of course your lovely wife and all of that, you can share that with our Pod TV audience and all along those lines. But definitely, how's it going, cousin M? And how is life treating you up there between DC and Atlanta and the various other places that you travel at?
And something tells me that he can't hear us again.
Oh no, he could hear us and now he can't hear us again.
He might want to restart or something like that, which of course he
Yeah.
can't hear. So I will type that to him.
Yeah, I'll type that to him as well. He
Yeah.
might want to go in and out. But Greg, just tell me a little bit about this company. Like I said, I have been a science fiction fan, and I heard people that have talked about this notion of warp and all of that. And then folks have gone like, that'll never happen in our lifetime. But then again, they thought that a lot of other things would not happen in our lifetime and all in that space. So, Greg, tell me a little bit about this company that you and Emmett, my cousin, are involved with. And we'll see if he's back and if he can hear me now. Can you hear me?
Doesn't look like he can. Um,
Okay.
but that's okay. So yeah, first of all, thank you so much for having us on the show. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate your time and energy. Warp Drive has actually been theoretically possible since 1994.
Yeah.
In fact, I've actually got a little bit of research here.
Okay.
Not too much.
Not too much.
Um, Not too much. But in 1994, a Mexican physicist by the name of Miguel Alcubierre actually sat down and kind of did some really wonky math to show that, yeah, warp drive is possible. It's a lot of energy and a lot of mass, but there is a solution to Einstein's general relativity equations that show that it can be done. However, the problem is that you need 10 times the mass energy of the universe to make it happen. So it's possible, but not really, right? You need a unicorn. So over the past 20 years or so, people have kind of really sat down and kind of really played with this to figure out there's a way to actually fix this and to kind of figure out if we can make it, if we can drop the energy requirements. And we got it down to about 2020 or so. There was a lot of math being done, and we figured out that we could basically do it with the mass energy of Jupiter, which is great. But the problem is you've gone from a unicorn to a vial of unicorn blood. It's still impossible, but it's less impossible, right? Okay, fine. So during the pandemic, though, a lot of people, well, they were stuck at home and they had a bunch of high power computers and they started running some interesting math and they realized, you know what, we might be able to do this. There might be a way to do this without needing the mass energy of Jupiter. And I was at home during the pandemic, of course, just like everybody else was, and I was keeping up with the literature. And I realized that no one had really thought about combining this with one of our bigger problems, which is energy production.
Mhm.
And so we realized that if you can create warp bubbles in the lab, very, very small, the amount of energy that you need for warp bubble is directly proportional to the radius of it. So these guys were talking about making like 100 meters. We're talking about making the Enterprise. We're talking about nanometers. That's knocking 12 zeros off the energy. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And when we sat down and thought about it, we realized that if you have a lot of these things, you can basically create, when you turn them all on, whatever's inside of it gets crunched.
Hmm.
So we thought about it and realized, hey, listen, if that's the case, why don't we put hydrogen in there? Because then we've got fusion. And that means, yeah, I see the look. I get it. That means that we can create microfusion reactors. And that means that now Lawrence Livermore, of course, did their fusion experiment about 6 months ago. They produced some power, but they have a long way to go. Fusion's always been 20 years off. I'm 44. When I was in elementary school, for a science fair project, I did like a mock-up for a fusion power plant. And we were always told it's 10 years away. We've been being told it's 10 years away for the past 40 years, right? The reason is because there's two ways to do it. You either spin stuff up really fast and smash it all together, or can you hear us now?
Yes, I can.
Fantastic. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
So either you spin things up really fast and smash them into each other, or you take a bunch of lasers and you fire it in a little pellet to make it work. So in essence, for the past 4 years, all fusion people have been working on bigger is better. If we build the bigger magnetic confinement, if we put more energy into it, we'll actually get over the hump, right? No, that's not how it's going to work. We are, in essence, cheating. We found a nice little hack in physics where if we can create these very small warp bubbles, whatever's inside gets crunched. Imagine like you're taking these nuclei and you're folding them on top of each other. The reason that fusion works the way it does, when you try to get nuclei together, they push away from each other because they're both positively charged. But if you force them to be on top of each other, the strong force takes over, they fuse together, you get energy out of it. We don't need something very large. We need it really small. So we started partnering up with labs. We got 6 labs right now that we're working with, and they're each kind of going at this from a different way. All they need to do is create a small microscopic warp bubble. And it's pretty easy to measure. And the amount of energy required, you can't do it in your backyard. You can't do it in your garage. But you can do it in a pretty well, decently stocked lab. So it's not 2 car batteries and some aluminum foil, but you don't need to build your own power plant to make this happen. Once you show proof of concept, then we can actually start working on the fusion. And one of our labs is actually a fusion lab. They're actually at the University of Alabama, Huntsville, Rocket City. And our guy is a PhD in fusion engineering. He's actually helping to build fusion rockets for NASA. When we showed him what we're doing, he jumped out of his chair and clapped his hands like a schoolgirl at 13, 13-year-old schoolgirl at Taylor Swift concert, because he realized that we had solved most of the problems that he had been facing. This means that we're actually able to, we don't need deuterium or tritium. We don't need these crazy isotopes of hydrogen. We can just use water. So if you remember, because you're old enough, do you remember the end of Back to the Future when Doc Brown pulls into the driveway and he pops up in Mr. Fusion and just starts dumping stuff in from we can do that. That's the idea. Now it's going to be about 10 years. We can't do it tomorrow. But that's the goal of what we're doing. And the more that we talk to people in the field, the more we realize that not only do we have a good idea, no one else is doing it. No one else is thinking that this is the way to go. But we think this is a commercially viable way to go. The size of the reactor itself will probably be about the size of two of your fists put together, and you can produce about a terawatt of power. And you're burning milligrams of hydrogen. So, like, a few liters of water will run you can drive across the country with it without a problem. It's insane when you think about the amount of power that you can get out of this. It's absolutely ridiculous. So that's in the long and short of it. That's kind of the very the summary of what's going on. I'm going to shut up and let Emmett talk because he got kicked
No, I
off.
definitely want to hear more about that as well. And of course, as I was talking about being the oldest among the cousins and Emma being the second and everything in that space. But one of the things I was curious about as I was hearing you talk, Greg, is that there is a new industry that is very popular and it is gaining popularity and everything. And if I'm hearing you correctly, that new industry might be in trouble because I'm thinking about the fact that a lot of people have been very excited about electric cars. I have a dear friend of mine that is a photographer that both he and his wife own electric cars. So if we're about to have warp cars, then we may not need electric cars. So will those two industries work together, or how will that go and everything? And then the second question to that, and then I want to hear your answers and Emmett's answers as well, is there's these things called lobbies. They can be very powerful, and I'm wondering if y'all are going to get any pushback from them and all along those lines, because definitely that is. I know the electric companies are a very powerful lobby, so I can imagine that in some ways they might be going like, "Wait a minute, they're taking away from our money. We're not too pleased with that."
So to your first question about electric vehicles and electric cars, the nice thing is that what the goal for us is actually integrate this with what they're doing. We might not design them to be put into cars. We might design them to be in small substations, just like we're doing charging right now, right? It might be too big to put into a car because the reactor itself is only two fists put together, right? But it's going to produce a lot of excess energy. We're going to need to wrap that in a water cooler, and that's going to run a turbine. That might be too big for a car, right? And if that's the case, EV is perfect, because one of the issues with EV right now, of course, is that yes, you've got clean energy, you got clean electricity coming out of that. We're still burning coal to produce that energy, right? That's one of the big flaws of the infrastructure. This takes care of this. We can replace the infrastructure right now with fusion reactors. Nothing has to change with EV. Everybody wins in that regard, right? We'll discuss why cars will be obsolete in a bit, but that's down the road. That's 15 years down the road, not right now. Your second question about lobbies. So that's where I'm the weird person here. And Emmett will tell you this on more than one occasion. My PhD is in political science. And so my PhD was actually about capacity building and state building. One of those things is, how do you deal with states? How do you work with that? And the answer is, you lobby. So we're already working with the Department of Energy. We're working with NASA. We're working with, I'm missing one, Department of Energy, NASA, the National Science Foundation. And we've actually gotten some of our legislators on board. In fact, as you can see right up here, there it is. So I'm in Atlanta, so I'm in Georgia. And one of our senators, Senator Raphael Warnock, we're actually working with his office to get a letter of support for a lot of the grants we're asking for from the federal government. So they know what we're doing, right? The reason for that is because we know that the Chinese and the Russians are working on fusion as well. So the Chinese will try to steal our stuff. The Russians will just put a bullet in my head. The goal here then is to make sure they don't do that. And it's in America's best interest for us to win this race. They don't want to steal our stuff. They don't want to stop us. They want to make sure that we can protect our property because we want to sell it to the U.S. government. We'll give them a discount. I don't care. Be plenty of cash at that point to do that. We don't want the Chinese and the Russians to have it. We want Western powers to have it. This breaks our dependence upon foreign oil. It breaks our dependence on foreign natural gas. along amongst other things, right? Yes, there's a bunch of lobbies out there. The oil and the natural gas companies, and the power companies might have a problem, but here's the thing, though. Um, we're going to go to these oil companies who we've already started talking to and say, listen, we're working on this, and you can invest in us, or we'll go to your competitors and they'll invest in us. Either way, you're going to work with us or not. And if you don't work with us, you're going to be obsolete. They're probably going to create some sort of cartel, which they kind of already have. They'll all pool their money together and they'll all work with us together. They'll all share the benefits because they're not stupid. They know the oil's running out and they know that the technology's coming along. There's a chance of this happening. I know for a fact that Helion and a lot of the other fusion companies, they're getting money from energy companies for this exact reason, right? They know that this is that they're in trouble, right? And this is going to make most energy production obsolete because if I'm burning water, why would I need to burn coal? Why do I need solar? Why do I need wind? Each of those has disadvantages. This one basically doesn't. This is a next level of energy. This is where we can really go. And fusion power produces 1,000 times the amount of power that chemical reactions do. So I can burn a kilogram of water and I'm getting the same amount of energy that I get out of a ton of coal. That's insane when you think about it. And I didn't say fresh water. We can just dump a nice hose into the ocean and pull out what we need to go where we want to go. And again, this is some ways down the road. We got to do proof of concept first. That'll take about 5 years. It'll take about 5 to 6 years to actually produce a fusion reaction. But once we do that, sky's the limit.
It sounds like it's very much the limit. Hey, Emmett, I know as I've alluded a couple of times, we're got that cousin relationship and all along those lines. But one of the things I was curious about was at what point did you become interested? Because I know a lot of the history, including working for Nielsen and including that long, illustrious military career. So, at what point did you hook up with Greg? At what point did you become interested in uh, warp speed and the fusion concept of the business and everything? Because, like I was telling earlier, I definitely have been a science fiction fan. Can't remember if you were always a science fiction fan or not, but definitely do know that that is a part of the whole notion of science fiction is warp speed and getting out there. So, definitely, when did you get involved? And tell us a little bit about that involvement and when this came about, your interest in this particular field.
Okay, it was about 2 years ago, and I was looking on LinkedIn because part of me wanted to say is I've been doing government contracting work for a number of years. I did military for 28 years. Last 14 was active duty, but I was looking for something different, something that was going to be a little more meaningful. And on LinkedIn, I came across an ad, and part of it that was getting me was describing this crazy notion. And he said one of the things in there he says is, "I'm looking for my Spock to my Kirk. I'm looking for my Riker to my Picard. If you know what I'm talking about, let's talk." And I knew immediately he was referring to Star Trek. Now, I'm not the Star Trek geek that he is or others. However, it got me intrigued. And so what I've been trying to do all of my professional career was building up to being a chief operating officer somewhere, which is taking all the aspects of what I learned in the military, whether it be operations, HR, logistics, intelligence, communications, everything that you need to do to be a general officer, as a definition implies, as a generalist. That's the approach I was taking. So in my military career, and even working in McDonald's Corporation and AC Nielsen, and even now at Booz Allen Hamilton, I'm able to cultivate some of those different aspects. And when I saw Greg's call out on LinkedIn, I said, that is something I can do. And it was just fortunate enough that I had a chance to go down and meet with Greg face to face. And really, he was saying it to me, and excuse my language here, but he said, "Yeah, this may sound like batshit crazy stuff, but I think I can do this." And Greg has this personality where he can sell ice cubes to the Inuits. He can he can sell oil to oil companies that they don't need it. But he has that ability to give him 5 minutes. 30 minutes later, you'll be like saying, "Where'd the time go?" Because not only is he's able to sell the vision, but he not only believes it, but he also had the backing behind it. So as we're talking, he said, "Oh, do you have questions about the technology? Here's a bunch of peer-reviewed papers. Take a look at them. Oh, you want to know about who else is doing this? Here's another set of documentation of competitors that are out there and what they've been doing where he felt things would be different. And as he's showing right now, that's just one of his folders that he has. Uh, but really is more than anything else, it got me excited. But also recognizing that his personality and my personality, they're not the same, which I think is good. We are like a yin and yang, and they were able to complement each other. One of the things we describe is he is the kite that without a tether will fly up to the sun and get burned by the sun. My job is I'm the one holding the kite string. So I'm here tethering him to the ground, making sure he doesn't go too far off the rails, but it's still he has the freedom to go out there and explore and push ideas and be the one with the crazy ideas that actually are not so crazy once you start talking to the right people. So that's what I found is he recognized his limitations. He saw where I can compliment him, and vice versa. I think he saw that although I'm not a scientist, I can understand enough of what he's talking about to get the big picture, and that's what he and I have been doing back and forth. He's come back a lot of times and says, Emmett, I brought you on board to do exactly this because you have this expertise. I'll give an example. A recent example is we talked with one of our advisors about our uh, not the budget. What's it called? The business plan.
Hmm.
And one of our advisors said to Greg is, "This is a piece of shit." And he goes, "Greg, do you have an MBA?" He goes, "No." He goes, "Does Emmett have an MBA?" "Yes." "Then why the hell isn't Emmett doing it?" "Good point. Emmett, here you go." And then that is where one of the strengths that I was able to bring in from the business sense is able to bring that into play as well. So again is and then going back, our advisor said, yes, this is much more in line with what we're looking for. So that's how we've been able to go back and forth. Uh, in the military, one of the things is as a leader, you don't want to have yes people surrounding you. Uh, Greg is the same way. He wants people around him that'll tell him, "Hey, Greg, you're full of it. Slow down. This isn't going to work." But he'll. It's not just saying no, but also he'll listen to you when you say no, but also know why are you saying no, so that he can then say, "I understand now why Emmett or Alex or Athena. Here's the reason why we disagree." And as a good leader, he's surrounding himself with people who are smarter in certain areas than he is, and that he relies on us to do that. And seeing that that was his personality and what he was willing to do, that also was very attractive to me. And I do remember when we were sitting in a Starbucks, and he reached over and says, "Is do you want the job?" I'm like, "Yes." And he goes, "Congratulations, you're my COO." And we've been on this roller coaster of emotions for almost 2 years now. So
Well,
that answers
appreciate
your
it.
question.
Yeah. Hey, Greg, along those same lines, I know that sometimes when people are in leadership and they are doing business development, they are sometimes afraid to get folks that are smarter than them or that have more experience than them. Emmett definitely mentioned the notion of somebody that had an MBA that you don't have and everything. So, how important was it for you to build a team that was made up of folks that were had the same kind of ambition as you do, but also have different skill sets?
It was probably one of the most important things. I ran a nonprofit for 14 years that had UN operational status. We actually did work with refugees all over the world. So I already had a lot of these leadership lessons. And one of the main ones was if you're the smartest person in the room of your senior staff, then you pick the wrong senior staff and you're in the wrong room. Everyone has something.
Oh, I think we lost him for a moment there.
Thing.
Oh,
And
now
if
he's
you are
back now.
surrounding yourself with clones of yourself, you don't learn anything. Sorry?
Yeah, you
You just for
froze.
a second there when you were talking about the room and everything. So if you just repeat that for us.
Of course. So the room is an interesting thing. It's if you're in the room and everyone is a carbon copy of you. One, you don't learn anything. Two, everyone thinks that you're right because they think the same way that you do. And three, most importantly, you're not going to move forward. I want people who are ambitious but have different skill sets. So every person that we've hired so far, we're working with so far, has a different skill set from me. There's some overlap, and part of my job is as much of my skill set as I can give you. But on the flip side, their job is here's a bunch of my skill set to you, so you can understand where we're coming from, right? Because the thing is that if I'm the smartest person in the room, or even worse, if I think I'm the smartest person in the room and I'm actually not, that can be even worse. If you're the smartest person in the room, at least you've got the smarts to keep you going. But if you're not the smartest person in the room and you think that you are, then you're the idiot. And that's a problem. So when it comes to this, people who have the expertise, I will always give them a listen. And when it comes to what Emma was talking about, Emma and Athena and Alex, Athena is our CSO. She's our chief science officer. She's got a PhD in quantum mechanics. She's got an MD. She's got 4 patents. Alex Dolce is our CL, our chief legal officer. Of course, she has a JD. She's actually practicing law. She has contracts just space law. I don't know law. I don't know space law. I know quantum mechanics, but not like PhD quantum mechanics. They all fill skill holes. And Emmett, of course, is a cyber terrorism expert, and he's a COO, and he advises Joint Chiefs of Staff. And he has a military background that I do not have. That's different. That's something I need. A good friend of mine, and this is about personal relationships, romantic relationships, but it fits. I asked him, him and his wife were very happy. It's very disgusting. He was like, he was like, I asked him, how'd you work out so well? He's like, my wife was like a pair of pants. I said, that is so misogynistic. What the hell are you talking about? And he's like, so I'm a dress shirt, right? She's the pants. We're not the same, but we complement each other. And that's what makes the outfit. That's what makes the good look, right? And so I don't want another dress shirt. I got one. I need the pants. I need the shoes. I need the socks. I need the belt. Suspenders if you're really going old school with it. I need the bow tie. However you want to roll with it, right? That's what I need. And if you have a bunch of dress shirts, you look flashy, but you're not wearing any underwear. That's a problem. You get arrested for that, from what I hear. So for me especially, finding these people and making sure they're in, because the other thing that Emmett didn't tell you was I asked him 2 questions during the interview, and then I shook his hand. One, I asked him a question I knew he wouldn't have the answer to. I basically asked him like the electron shell configuration of some element. And he said, I don't know. I said, good. Now you passed 1. I need people who can say, I don't know. Mm-hmm. If you can't say, I don't know, you're in trouble, right? Because then you're going to make something up and you might get people killed, especially what we're doing. 2, I said, if I'm totally wrong, can you call me out? And he said, oh, absolutely. That's when I stuck up my hand. Those are the only 2 questions I needed and it was 2 interviews. One was online. The second one I met him in person. That second interview was 5 minutes. That was it. At that point, I knew I had my man. And I did the same thing with everyone else I've been hiring for senior staff and everything else. I would say it is one of the most vital things in the world to put yourself in a room with people who know stuff that you don't. Because otherwise, your universe gets very small. You think you know everything. That's how people get killed in fields like this. Because if you're doing new theory and new work of this nature, you're doing dangerous stuff that if you don't check everything, you might make a mistake that's going to hurt people. And I don't want to do that. I try to do this morally and ethically as possible. And ignoring data, no matter how much I don't want to hear it, is not an option for me.
It's interesting you say that because we were talking earlier today and it's actually with one of the founders of Pod TV, and she's got an engineering background, that being Kim Calhoun. But we were talking about OceanGate, and it was actually on our media show. And part of what I was hearing was exactly what you just described, which is that unfortunately that even though he was one of the people that passed away, one of those folks that was actually involved in that was doing a lot of shortcutting. Because I know my buddy Jacoby that's in the gaming industry was talking about how he had read that gentleman had done a lot of what you say you definitely don't want to do, which is a number of shortcuts, and all in that space. So they knew that it was going to be a dangerous mission even before those people went down there, and there were others that had been on those trips and had been very perilous as well. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about that, because that was something that as you were speaking about that, I was going like, I've heard this narrative before, but on the opposite side where people were not doing what they should have been doing.
It pissed me off, frankly, because the thing is, there's a lot of parallels between ocean exploration and space exploration. In the fact that we are in environments that we are not designed to be in, right? We have to build special suits and special mechanisms and special equipment and special structures to ensure that we aren't killed by no pressure and vacuum or too much pressure that will crush us like bugs, right? And the fact that people told them over and over again, even from an engineering perspective, you build it as a sphere because a sphere is going to have equal pressure on all sides. That's one of the ways you equalize it. You didn't build a sphere. The front window was only good to 13,000 feet or something to that effect. Like, there's a lot of shortcuts that he took. And what frustrates me is that we have not had a submersible disaster in 35, 45, 55 years until this one, because of regulations, because of standards. Engineering is a cruel mistress. If you don't obey it correctly, it's going to crush you whether you like it or not. You cannot, for lack of a better term, you cannot bullshit your way out of reality. You just cannot. And people said, oh, well, he already went down before. That's the thing. That plane's flown 5,000 times. There's fatigue. There's stress lines. There's things in there that add up over time. Yeah, they were totally fine the first 5 times. It's that 6th time that you get the pop. And that's what happened with them. And people are like, oh, it's so tragic and so on and so forth and da-da. And it is tragic, don't get me wrong. But here's the thing. If they had actually listened to everybody else and actually gotten accredited and had it stress test and peer reviewed, which is a big thing we're trying to do. Like, just because we do it in the lab doesn't mean we did it. We want other people to check it because we could be wrong, because humans have a bad habit of being able to deceive ourselves, right? That's one of the things we do very, very well, is we deceive ourselves. And so for me, that guy doing that, now everyone's going, oh, well, now, let's discuss exploration, the price of it. I don't really consider that exploration. I consider that people rolling the dice on taking a stupid risk, and they paid the price. And it's sad, don't get me wrong, but it's not the same as space exploration. If you're working with NASA, NASA's not going to let you go off half cock. They're not. There's all kinds of checks and balances in the system. James Cameron, who, he's a bit of a nut when it comes to making his movies, but he's an excellent engineer, and he understands submersibles better than just about anybody else. I mean, he flat out said, and I agree with him, he spent more time on the Titanic than the captain of the Titanic did. Like, he's been down there many times. It's like, this is stupid. You should check this. And there's a great piece on I think it was like the LinkedIn or Facebook. There's a great meme of like peer review. It's James Cameron in one of the submersibles. He's surrounded by stuff and whatnot. And then the next one's like, I did my own research, and it's the Ocean Gate guy holding up a Xbox controller, right? Mm-hmm. And the concept is peer review sucks. No one likes doing peer review. I hate it. It's a bunch of people who want to take you down. That's the point. If they can't take you down, your idea is really good. You've got a good idea of what's going on. It's when you think you can roll the dice with nature that you've got that problem. And so that's my personal take on this.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I can definitely take heed on what you're saying and everything. I want to bring in a gentleman that comes on our new show quite a bit, and he is very much interested in infrastructure. He is a big fan of infrastructure, and he actually works with the Morrisville City Council and all of that. And I think that he's got some engineering background as well. So I'm going to bring in Steve Rao and see what Steve has got to say about some of the things that are going on as well. Well, I've been talking to my cousin Emmett. This is my cousin Emmett.
Hey guys,
is waving the hand, and Greg Hodgins. They have actually formed a company that is dealing in warp speed and warp technology. So they're doing some major work in that field. And I know that you've been thinking about infrastructure and some of the things that you're doing, even with your company and everything. So definitely that's where the conversation's been going. If you want to jump in, definitely feel free to do that and everything. But I did have a quick question for Greg, as Steve is thinking about his question and all along those lines, which is, Emmett knows this, and a lot of my family members know this. For decades, I have not been driving the car, partially because of something called dysgraphia. It's like a form of dyslexia and all of that. So does this mean that what you just said earlier, because you said that cars are about to be obsolete, that I will be able to get around, won't have to depend on my younger brother in his car, and won't have to, I haven't really ridden his Polaris because he got one of those fancy Polarises and everything, but I won't have to depend on those. I can actually get around without a car and everything. So Greg, is this coming sooner versus later? Will I be 61 or be 61 on Saturday? Will I be like 80, or will it happen by the time I'm like 70?
75 or about. So the idea is that what we can do is that we can, once we create the fusion reactors, of course, now we have the power that we need to begin making bigger warp bubbles. And the idea behind that is, one of the main issues with the literature is that they're making these very large warps. They're taking like kilometers at a time and warping that down. Imagine like a carpet, and you scrunch up the carpet, right? That's how it's working. We said, why are you making it so big? Why don't you just scrunch up like a micrometer at a time? You just do it 100 million times a second. That's how most computer processors work, right? It's a gigahertz, whatever. It's moving billions of times a second, doing billions of trillions of calculations a second. We can do the same thing with this. What that means is that you're actually minimizing the environmental impact of what you're doing, so you can lift off from your driveway. So in essence, you get into your box or whatever you want to call it. I don't know what it's going to look like yet. You get in there, type in your destination. 4 seconds later, you're there. You can land anywhere. You can take off anywhere. Don't know if it's going to work in the ocean yet. In fact, I do not want to try that. It will be designed for space and it'll be designed for atmospheric travel, but not the ocean, because the ocean has a totally different amount of problems with that. But idea would be you can go and kind of do what you want to. So one of the reasons why I'm excited about a lot of the AI stuff and a lot of the self-driving things, we're going to need a large AI assisted system to help us navigate everybody. Um, the nice thing about it, though, is it's something called non-inertial. Non-inertial means that when you turn it on, there's no acceleration. So if I take a baseball and I throw it, it's got acceleration. It's moving at a certain velocity. If I turn on this warp engine, whatever environment I started in, so if I started on the ground, that's the inertial frame I'm going to be in. So there's no acceleration. It's almost like being in an elevator. The problem with that is if I go somewhere and the warp field cuts off, normality takes over. So if I'm 5 miles up, I just fall. But the nice thing is that there's a way to actually set it up so that your standby mode is you just kind of park where you are and you wait to where you want to go. So there's a way for us to do this where, in essence, you get into your little car in North Carolina or DC or Atlanta, wherever you are. You step in. 4 seconds later, you're in Nairobi or Ulaanbaatar or Beijing, whatever. We can probably be in orbit in about 10 seconds and deploy satellites and things like that. We can be on the moon in about 2 minutes or so. We can be on Mars in 30 minutes. So, and this is all, we are not doing FTL. We're not going faster than light. This is all sublight right now. And that's the kind of the key thing. So many people want to make the jump. A lot of theoretical physicists work on this. Like, we want to build the Enterprise and go faster than light right now. No. You start small. You slowly work your way up. And to go to your engineering question, how do you make sure this is safe and how do you build those regulations? And each time that we do this, we're learning more, and we don't expand how big the warp bubble is until we learn as much as we can from the smaller ones. Each of these is around the patents. That's how we make our money. We license the patents out. We get money for that because there's a lot of things that we can use this for that we don't entirely know about. It might make better telecommunications. It might be better for medical stuff. There's all kinds of uses of this technology that we don't know yet. We're creating a whole new field in that regard. So to answer your question, we think in 15 years or so, you'll be older, but you won't be old.
Good, that sounds good. I'm planning to live to be 200 or something like that. I've already said that I'm going to still try to maybe dance even at that age and everything. So I'm going to bring in another guest who is a friend of mine, and she's actually involved in the dance community. So I want to know whether warp speed can help our dance friends and all along those lines. So Nicole Oxendine is actually the founder of Empower Studios here in Durham, North Carolina, and has been a long-time dancer. I forgot how long she's been doing dancing, at least 20 or so years and everything. Emily, it's hard to believe she looks like she's about 25, but she's actually got a little bit more age than that because she's definitely been doing dancing for a number of years and all in that space. So what do you think? Are you ready for warp speed dancing, Nicole? And we're going to have the technology that you can actually do dancing on using warp and that whole science fiction kind of thing, according to what Greg and my cousin Emmett are telling me. So are you ready for warp dancing?
That sounds great. I'm literally very much into science fiction. So on the side, and I'll laugh and say thank you. It's over 20 years of dancing as well. So
It's kind of funny you should say that because one of the things I wanted to do was actually do a dance number while we're flying to Mars. And the reason is you can't do that in microgravity. We're actually figuring out a way to actually keep some kind of gravitational force. And the goal is to show how relaxed we are while we're going because it's about a 20-minute trip. So you can do a decent dance number in 20 minutes. Had to figure out how to put the speakers in, but
that's the zero gravity thing is, got me sold on that.
and the thing about dance as well is there's such a deep concept of rhythm and resonance in that regard. And a lot of what we're doing is also rhythm and resonance. It's about constructive and deconstructive interference of a lot of waves and things of that nature. And music is just math that you play on an instrument. And the art of dance as well is the expression of mathematics when you really think about it. And the exacting standards that are required. Like, my God, do you do ballet, tap? What kind of dance do you do?
I am modern and ballet.
So your toes are terrible, and I'm so sorry. When you think about the amount of force required to do that, in fact, when we discuss physics, we discuss ballet dancers who translate very well to ice skaters.
Yep.
And we discuss the conservation of angular momentum, which is when you pull your hands in, you can spin faster.
Yes.
Right? As I recall, football players take ballet lessons.
Yep.
Because the precision of the footwork required
That's
and the
a good
conditioning
word.
required breaks 300-pound men because
Yep.
they're just not prepped for that. In fact, several men have come out, like wide receivers who were like, who could crush me like a bug, have come out crying from ballet recital lessons
Yes,
because
that's
this is the
it.
most difficult physical conditioning I've ever done. Is that the case?
I mean, that is literally the case. And it's funny you mentioned the physics. I talk about this a lot when I'm teaching my students is, that sense of one, a lot of oppositional pulls in your body. How do you use that to hold balance? How do you drop and swing and lift the leg? Like, how do you find that? And exactly what you said about the closer your arms are together, the faster your turns are. You start opening your arms. So all of those things. And I tell them, I'm like, yeah, now I'm multidisciplinary. And you tell your parents you're learning physics with your ballet teacher in class. So yeah, no, it's spot on, and I love the interconnectedness of how movement can play in all different types of we all have bodies, we're all moving.
Hey, Nicole, along those same lines, I know that a lot of times people are thinking that you have to separate the left brain from the right brain. One is supposed to be more creative, the other is supposed to be more analytical. But I know for a fact from having known you and your mom for a while that y'all actually use both sides of that brain and use them quite effectively and all in that space. So I'm just wondering how much of this notion of science do you tie into your dance, and at what point did you realize that you had a love for both? Because you even mentioned earlier that you were a science fiction fan. I'm thinking you might have been watching some of those Star Trek and Deep Space Nines and all of those other
Hmm.
kind of
That's
things
so that's
that
my dad. So I have the science. My dad is the full-on science brain. Like, and it's so crazy how so he has a huge collection of sci-fi books, which I go and I borrow books from his library and read, and we have this great exchange. But growing up watching, listening to Star Trek, and you talk about the sound, he had the speaker sound where the entire room surround sound. You feel like you're on the Enterprise ship. Like that's the only way for us to watch Star Trek, but it's that feeling of the music. And for me, that translates of like, but you talk about the waves in your body. Like I like the music to be just like to feel that energy. I like to find all the different rhythms. I like to find all the different sounds. Like, and that's more my modern sensibility than the ballet, because ballet is a lot more regimented. But the modern dance allows you to really be in this, be in these weird and like these odd spaces that I think, the ballet gives you the structure and foundation. That if you really dig into modern and using music and how to use sound and how do you feel sound in your body, a lot of improvisation is like reacting to that. Like where in your body do you feel the sound and moving and what does that sound feel like? What's the vibrational level? Is it sharp? Is it smooth? So those are kind of that science fiction. When I talk about right and left brain, for me, I run a business. I look at it that way. If I could just be a creator and explore and, I feel like that's more the left brain side for me. The creative side is that piece of creating work. But then the other piece I think about like the product, like what gets me to a product of getting things done versus the creative side is more I'm in the process of how do we get here. And that's for me, the psychology behind it of why we do these things and that exploratory space. So I don't know if that quite answered your question, but
no,
it's
it
a
definitely
fun
did. And along
intersection.
those same lines, and I want to hear from Greg and Emmett about this as well. I know a lot of times when we think about certain businesses, they are always put the title of the business and then they put or the business under the end of it. So there's this notion of show business, or you can use in your case, dance business, or science fiction business, and a number of other things that we could go with health business. But I feel that a lot of times the folks are very much involved in whatever they're involved in, and they have a great passion for that. Not so much the business side. So that's why you get a person like my cousin Emmett who did all the business side and all in that space. But how much of that was an issue with you, Nicole, where you had to learn the business aspect? 'Cause like you said, Empower Studios is a business studio. Y'all do performances. I think y'all are probably at Centerfest. Y'all have been there a number of years and everything, and y'all have definitely performed at a number of other events around the community. But how much did you have to get your board and other people, including the students, to buy into the business aspect of what is going on?
Well, I think the plus is, for me, I anchor myself in a really strong mission. My background, I'm a dance movement therapist. So I have a master's degree in dance movement therapy. For me, it's the piece of understanding the why, going back to like psychology is all about the why. Why do we move? Why do we dance? And once I explain that and you break that down, and I look at from kids' developmental stages, like that's my nerd out space. I can go all the way into it. But what I find is that clearly articulating what that is, the the parents and the families are, they find it, when they go look at the website, it's really interesting how they describe our website. Like they get the feel, they get the energy. So I'm very clear on like what the creative vision of it is. And it's a little bit of marketing and branding because that's very creative to me. Creating that and being very clear. And then from there, it's just communicating that out to other people and letting them understand, okay, this is what we represent. This is what we stand for. Because I'm clear and anchored in that, like it's not different from what you see on the website. It's not different from what you feel like when you describe it. Like when you go to the site, it feels like this. You see the colors, like we choose an Empower pink, which is a strong, powerful pink. Not that's the soft, light pink that you typically see in ballet, but that's for a reason. We want those kids to access their power. So I use that and anchor that, like to start with that creative space. And then from there, you build out like, all right, now who looks at that? Like that's the business aspect. What type of people are attracted to this? What type of families or what type of parents and are interested in something like this for their child? And what we really have is a diversity of families. And we talk about the business aspect. That's kind of knowing your customer. And being able to clearly understand who our customer is. And then we step back to market to that customer who's being attracted. We ask them questions. What school does your child go to? Some of them are at like charter schools or creative schools or, different types of school. What activities are you interested in? Or what activities do your parents do? Or from some of our families, a lot of them are in women's studies, which is fascinating. You have some professors in women's studies or some filmmakers. So the type of people that are attracted to the mission and the vision is really, to me, is what keeps the business going, because we go back, we're mission driven and we're mission based.
Hey, very interesting. Hey, Greg, I have a couple of questions for you. One is that, and Nicole wasn't involved with this, but that we had one of the places I work at is a cultural arts center in Durham called the Hey Heritage Center. And they had a summer arts initiative, and they asked the kids, they did some Gunham dance, they did a number of other kind of performances, but they asked the kids to envision 2100. And one of the things that struck me was that a lot of their visioning was around social issues. So they were like having these big houses that had a whole section that was dedicated to homeless. They also had a whole section that was dedicated toward making sure that there were gardens involved, so that there was some sort of food involved in what was going on. So it seems like they were very aware of some of the social issues that are out there as well. So I was wondering, in your own childhood, was that something that you paid attention to? And at what point did you know that you wanted to do something that was going to make a difference?
So man, you hit on something really cool. When I was younger, I saw homelessness and I saw a lot of social injustice. I was born and raised in the American South, and I was exposed to a lot of racism, misogyny, things of that nature. I internalized it, and I didn't really question it until I was in my until my late teens, really. So I was in high school before I really was like, I just took all this stuff for granted. Why am I taking this stuff for granted? Then I got my first degrees in biochemistry. I got a degree in history, went and go taught high school. Then I went and go get a master's in political science, and I started a nonprofit. And I traveled all over the world and saw refugees and people who had been displaced by natural disasters, by war, by...
Think you froze again.
This white male privilege is a thing. It is a thing. It not only is it a thing, is a very insidious thing, because the thing about privileges is that the great thing about privilege is I can ignore it if I so choose. But other people cannot. They cannot take those things and put them somewhere else. So I saw people in Haiti who worked just as hard as I did, but were not going to make it anymore because of the system, right? There's a philosophical test by a philosopher named Rawls. And basically he says, if you can't pick your gender, you can't pick your race, you can't pick your socioeconomic status, would you want to be born in this society? And the answer is always no, but some societies do it better than others, right? And for me, fighting inequality is very important because, if I hit the jackpot, I'm a cis straight white guy in America. It's this system is designed for people like me. It is not designed for a lot of other people. And that frustrates me because we don't know how much of that human capital is being lost. We don't know where the next genius is. Could be in a refugee camp somewhere. And they're dying because they can't get water, because someone doesn't want to spend 20 cents, because charities are doing bad work. So I was trying to fix this Band-Aid. I was trying to slap a Band-Aid on this very large problem. So for 14 years, I tried working the system. We actually got language and international covenants and whatnot. And after a while, I was like, listen, we are working on the problem. It's a big problem though, but we're not fixing this. This isn't a solution to the problem. It's a Band-Aid to the problem. We need to fix the problem. That's climate change. And that's massive inequality. In fact, and Emmett knows this, which is, I think, one of the reasons he came on board. When we get our fusion reactors up and running, first thing we're going to do is hand them to least developed countries and make sure that they're powered for free. In exchange, they stop cutting down forests. The goal is to, because the thing about cutting down forests is they're not doing it because they hate the planet. They're doing it because that's how they survive, because that's all they have, right? And if you just impose a solution on people, you're usually causing more problems than what's happening, right? Like the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Actually, please go watch my TED Talk. I literally talk about all this stuff in my TED Talk about like how charities come in with the best intentions, but because they don't know what's going on the ground, you have problems. For most of history, physical technology has surpassed social, cultural, economic, and political science. So our social sciences lag behind our physical sciences. We build an atomic bomb and we have a bunch of nations who can kill each other, right? My goal is to build not just the technology, but also the social, cultural, political, and economic conditions so that when we do move forward, we have a minimum of disruption. We don't have civil wars. We don't have people lighting each other on fire. We don't have people killing each other over scarce resources. The goal is to create a post-scarcity society where everyone can partake, not just rich white people or anything else of that nature. So for me, I guess social justice has always been something that's been very important to me. I just didn't know it for a while. MLK Jr. said it best. That the social justice is long, but in the over time it bends towards truth, right? But that doesn't mean that happens by itself. You got to fight every day, and being able to power is neutral. It's how you use it that actually matters. In fact, there's a great piece and Emma's heard the story 20 times. And if you want to go pass out, by all means. There's a beautiful piece in the UN meditation room. When you walk in UN headquarters, on the left is Sputnik, sitting right at the top. On the right, there's a meditation room. And in that meditation room is a big, massive block of iron ore that has been mined. It's just a big, massive square, rectangular block. And Dag Hammarskjöld, who's one of the best diplomats of the 20th century, basically wrote like a benediction on the wall. And he's like, listen, our ingenuity, human hands and human brains invented the machinery to dig up this iron and to purify it and to slap it in front of us right now. And feed people with agriculture. We can choose to make swords out of this and kill each other. But the choice is always ours. The technology is neutral. It's how us humans choose to use it that will make the difference. And whenever I went to the UN, I always went in there for at least 30 minutes because one, it was quiet and it was Manhattan. It was nice. But the other thing is that it really helps you center your mind of like, you can actually do amazing things with the correct technology and the correct power, or you can do awful things. But so many people think about, and I go back to Jurassic Park and Ian Malcolm, so many people think about what they can do or what they could do. They never ask if they should do it or how they should do it, right? And for me, these questions are intertwined. I don't want to leave the planet unless we fix this one first. I don't want to create more inequality. I want to break inequality. I want to break the cycle. I want to break the wheel. And this is one of the ways that you can create a solution to this problem. Most refugees now are climate change refugees. They're fleeing because there's water issues, because there's conflict over resources and things of that nature. And it's going to get worse. If we can figure out a way to actually fix that and make the world less unequal and more equality and more justice and more access for people who are neurodiverse or whatever else is going on, let's do that. I want to sign up for that because guess what? That was Star Trek. Like when you really think about it, Star Trek has been progressive. People are like, oh, Star Trek's gone woke. I'm like, did you watch it in 1966? There's a black woman on the bridge and she's not the secretary or the maid. Like, really? Like there's a Russian guy at the weapons console. Like there's an Asian person driving. Yeah, there's a white guy in the center. Don't get me wrong, but you have women in relatively powerful positions, right? And each iteration of Trek has taken that step further, right? You've taken it a step further. You have more powerful minorities. Discovery just had the first official, flat out open LGBTQ community, couple who, by the way, how they showed they were together? They're brushing their teeth together and went to bed, which is such a normal thing. But I think that's one of the nice things about Trek is they don't drop this massive, heavy thing on you. They're just like, it just happened. Like, of course it's going to be this way. Why would it not be this way? Star Trek gave us this optimistic idea of the future that we can get over our own shit, right? And then we can move on from these things. But it's going to require a lot of this technology. It's going to require a lot of social, economic, cultural change and justice. And if these two things are divorced, we kill ourselves, in my opinion. Sorry, I rambled a little bit.
No problem. Hey, Nicole, on that same thoughts and everything, how important is it for you to mix your art and your activism? Because I do know that even in this area, you have some activism in your own life and everything. So how important is it for you to mix those two?
Yeah, I really identified with a lot of what you said, Greg. For me, it's because I started teaching in the high school. I taught high school dance for years, and that was really the catalyst for me, starting in power. I have one piece that I created. Was all about like guiding light, and it had this wonderful kind of optimistic outlook on the world. And then at this point, I think Trump was about to be elected or something. It was something the election piece, and it just in that piece I was so frustrated, and I shifted the entire kind of scope of that work. And now the title of the piece is Have Mercy, but it's a prayer for America. They use the flag throughout the piece. They're throwing the flag around, and it's this, for me it's a lot of angst, and it was, for me, that's my angst about, okay, what does it mean to be an American? And as many times as that piece is one of our strongest repertory pieces, as many times we've taken it to perform, there's people are always conflicted, right? So, if you're a veteran or you grew in that space, we're throwing a flag around and it might touch the floor, like in that piece, or, we grab it, you hold it up, then you grab it here, and the reactions of people to that. And, we talk about activism in that sense. Whenever we're asked to perform somewhere, I'm very intentional around the piece that we do take. I think about, all right, what is the effects? For me, it's that piece of how do I use this as a voice to speak? The way I also teach my students, and I was really excited for their show this year, is they started speaking on those social issues, right? So one of the students created a piece on human trafficking, right? The name of the song was Nobody Cares. And I'm like, this is powerful. Another one was about prayer. It's so them seeing that, for me, setting an example of like, and I would tell them about the piece, like, this is me, like, dealing with America. That, when Trump was elected, the first round, like, we're still performing this piece, like, and every time it has a different meaning, and or it still connects to what we feel about America. Um, but that piece of teaching this next generation to use their art as a way to express, as a way for activism, to be a way to use it. So thinking of like, we do festivals, we do different cultural events of like, all right, well, we're taking this piece, we're taking this, and we're going to make sure that the audience understands like we're using this as our art form, and our way to articulate and our way to express, and to educate, right? So that piece of like, people don't know about all the things, and as dancers, a lot of times I'm educating them and they're educating me, right? So it's that kind of cross thing of like, they have so much to say. And I like to teach them, that, this is a tool, a dance is a tool. This is one way that we can be, it's not all happy, right? We're not always happy dancing. You can express the frustration, you can express your sadness, you can express your fears, and really use dance as your outlet and your tool. And that's, for me, is a real basis for, what the active, the movement and activism for me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Hey, Emmett, cousin over there and everything. One of the things I was curious about is that your mom, my aunt, was very much of a leader in the education field, both there in Richmond as well as in the New Jersey area and everything. And there are some folks that are frustrated by the state of education. So I was just wondering your own thoughts about the state of education. And do you think that we're seeing enough of the science development in the education space and all along those lines? Because I would sometimes wonder what Aunt Kellen, your mom, would think about where we are in education if she was still living and all along those lines. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And then you can also tell Nicole if you've got any dance moves at all in that space.
Line dancing. Um, I think in some ways, I think my mom might be rolling over in her grave with the way education has gone. There's been some advances, but then I think in some ways we have retarded, and and I say it because I think sometimes we have gotten away from critical thinking, that we've gotten along to teaching to a standardized test, as opposed to going there and teaching people how to think. We're teaching these young people how to pass a test. Uh, so no longer are you really challenged to provide your own thoughts to something. It's more of, well, this is what it is, and you just memorize it, and that's it. Even I said right now, my wife, she's working on her PhD, and I know a number of people who've gotten a PhD who also, once they're done, they think is they are the end all be all because they've attained this education. My thing is, that's just you only become an expert at that little sliver. But more than anything, if you learn how to think critically, how to analyze information, how to look at things both quantitatively and qualitatively, and sometimes looking at both together, how they work together. And he shows the discipline that it takes to try to become an expert to a certain level. So that part I like, but I think even for the younger kids, that whether it be the core curriculum or whatnot, and uh, reliance too much on technology, is right now you go into McDonald's where you have a 16-year-old working behind a counter, and if for some reason they lose power and you bought something that costs $1 and the tax is 7 cents, they can't figure it out. You've all the kids right now is if you want to create a plan of which they will never be able to break the code, write in cursive.
Mhm.
They have no clue how to write, much less read in cursive anymore. I actually came across an adult recently who couldn't tell the time on an analog timepiece. They're not being taught that. We've got even my 33-year-old stepson. He admitted to me the other day when he was visiting, he doesn't know how to write a check.
Mhm.
These are some skills that we have lost. And I don't know if it's in the name of advancements that we don't need to know how to sign a check. We just use electronic means by which to transfer money. Again, we don't need to write anything in cursive anymore because we have a digital signature that we can use instead that may be more secure. Um, so really, when you ask that question, I think it's for me, it's a loaded question. I welcome the advancements in education, but then I think sometimes we forget sometimes the basics. Remember the 3 R's mark growing up: reading, writing, and arithmetic. I think we've gotten away from that. But at the same time, again, as I was talking with a young person recently, and what they're doing is they're taking geometry in like fourth grade. I didn't take geometry until I was in 10th grade. So those are some things, though those advancements are great as well. So I said it's for me, it's some things I like about the state of education, but other things I don't. And maybe I am showing my gray beard, which I see also you're touching your gray beard also.
Yes.
Is there certain ways that I don't want to be stuck in saying, well, this is the way we've done it before and our generation turned out fine. I don't want to be that person who just lives in the past, but I want to be that person who can embrace the goodness of education in the past, as well as the advancement in educations that we have today. So it's really it's where do you find that happy medium in education? And honestly, me personally, I am a lifelong learner, and I know mom growing up after finishing college, she was saying, go get a master's. I'm like, no, because she was pushing it so much. I'm like, no, no, no. And then after she passed away, I completed getting my MBA from North Central, and then went back, and by the grace of God, went to Harvard Business School. If my mom knew what I had accomplished that, she would have been jumping for joy. The fact that I it took me 30 plus years to finally go back and get the education that she wanted me to get. That's how important it was to her. So there's your answer.
No,
I'm
I
done.
appreciate that and everything. And Nicole, along those same lines and everything, one of the things I was thinking about, a couple of things. One, to that cursive remark, when I was thinking about that dance remark, our tech person at Hayti came by because they happened to see an exhibit that was going on in the room, and there was an exhibit of calligraphy. So the way that apparently the young kid described calligraphy to their parent was, I need you to come and see something that's kind of like cursive, but it's not cursive. So that was their way of saying that calligraphy is just another form of cursive, but it's a more fancy version and all along those lines. But to what it was kind of alluded to, I sometimes do get frustrated by some of those folks that are in that degree space and will have degrees and haven't had their body of work to get to that honorary degree. Because it's one thing to have a body of work, like you can have an honorary degree if your work has shown that you have done that work. But there are some folks out there that have bought their degrees, and that was a problem for me and everything. But I was wondering, as an educator, your thoughts about that, because I do know that that happens as well, that there are folks that are going to these institutions and basically buying their degrees. Miko.
Sorry. So I asked the question again. I don't think I understood. You were saying you were asking specifically about
I
honor.
was just asking about the state of education, but also in the higher education space, because I do know some folks that are not necessarily doing their work, but they will stick a doctor on their title.
Well, I could speak a little bit to the I guess the use of technology, and that's Emmett, you
Right,
were kind of going into that
right,
piece that,
right.
I think about when I first started teaching, being fresh out of college and YouTube being like the hot the thing that was coming up, and how I was able to use YouTube as a tool, and how I was able to use information, the access to information or the access to creating something. I just feel like that was something I've easier then. Now we're at this TikTok age where TikTok dances are all the rage. And for me, it's literally outside of the scope of what I can grasp to be able to make those connections as an educator. I think, like, so in that sense of like, there is something that's lagging in the space of when we think of TikTok dance, and Tommy DeFrance, who's a dance scholar at Duke, he talked about this a while ago, formerly of Duke, but a world dance scholar, and he talked about this. Yeah, so he talked about this thing of what would dance, the future of dance, right, or Afrofuturism in dance. And before TikTok became a thing, he talked about dance kind of shrinking into this like tiny space. And if you look at now with TikTok, you look at you're looking at a camera. Dance has to happen within this kind of frame of things. And I have a problem with that because I'm taught to dance big and to be and use all the space, and see how I'm using all the space and I'm outside of the frame, right? So now you have kids who are using movement in a different way. For me as an educator, it's really hard for me to make the connection to help them use that as a learning tool. I feel like it's, the shift of dance as the learning tool. It's like, yeah, learning dances, maybe using memory to learn dances, all of those things I could dig into. But, I definitely agree with this huge disconnect of even the position of educators and communicating how to actually grow students and what is the integration of technology in this new era of what social media is.
Yeah, I
So,
definitely
put
agree
you
with
in.
I would love to dive in on this one for a
Yeah.
second, if you guys don't
Oh,
mind.
hold
And
on a
I'm gonna
second. I
actually,
think Emmett said he has to leave, but we definitely still going to continue our conversation. Emmett, one of the things I
Absolutely.
get
Go
everybody to
ahead.
do, including you as my cousin, is if you'll tell folks how you can be reached and everything, and also if you have any message of positivity or hope, and then we'll have Greg dig into that concept and everything. But tell folks how you can be reached in
Okay.
this new company and everything.
And if the reg can be reached is coo@zcinstitute.com, and I put that into the chat. If it's not there, I'll make sure it's in there. The one thing that I know Greg and I have talked about, and I am completely on board with this, is we are trying to change humanity for the better. That's what we're trying to do, and like, we're doing it through trying to do it through clean energy. And I said I couldn't be with a better partner than Greg. So thank you, Greg, and Mark. Thank you, Nicole. Nice meeting you, but I do have to run. But take care, everyone. Have a good one.
thank you, Emmett. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Bye bye.
Greg, dig in. You
Um,
said you wanted to dig into that
yeah.
concept.
So actually, I wish Emmett was sitting around for this, because I'm going to read a quote, and you're all going to laugh, but you'll see why. The counts of the indictment are luxury, bad manners, contempt for authority, disrespect to elders, and a love for chatter in places of exercise. Children began to be the tyrants, not the servants of the households. They no longer rose from their seats when an elder entered the room. They contradicted their parents, chattered before company, gobbled up the food off the table, and committed various offenses against civilized tastes, such as crossing their legs. They tyrannized over the teachers and schoolmasters. This is a quote from Schools of Hellas, written in approximately 400 BC.
Wow.
We've been complaining about children being taught for 2,000 plus years. Let's do another one. Young people are high minded because they have not yet been humbled by life, nor have they experienced the force of circumstance. They think they know everything and are always quite sure about it. Aristotle, 4th century BC. The beardless youth does not foresee what is useful, squandering his money. Horace, 1st century BC. We've been complaining about children since we've had children, right? We've been complaining about the education system since we've had the education system. And I think that it's something that it's not a bad thing, because education by definition is always in flux. It is always changing. If we're not complaining, I think we're doing something wrong. If we have a perfect system frozen in place, something is wrong. The only constant in life is change. And kids these days, people go, oh, they can't even add up stuff, or they can't tell time. Why would they need to? They can't write cursive. Why would they need to? I don't know how to change a horse's shoe. Your point? I don't know how to hotwire a car. Can't do that anymore, right? There are a lot of skills that my parents and my grandparents have or had that are completely worthless now. I'm sure they said the exact same thing about us. Well, why aren't kids learning this crap? It's the same thing. What do we hold on to, and what do we teach, right? Because when it comes to a lot of these things, how do we continue passing on our culture and our social norms? Certainly, but as technology moves on, going to the TikTok thing, you're absolutely right. But the thing is, that's a new stage, is it not? And so for them, they have to abide by that. You have to abide by the strictures of your medium. I can't make the words on a book dance. I mean, I could, but I'd have to be on something else, right? I can't do that. Certain media have to be used in a certain way. And I'm not saying that you're wrong. You were trained a certain way. These kids are getting trained a different way, but I'm sure that they can complement each other in some way, right? And that's where it gets kind of fun. People just go, oh, they don't know what they're doing. Well, they probably don't, but you do, and you can adapt. And that's our job as the elder generations, to adapt what we know to the newer generation so they understand this is important. Here's why. Here's how to fit it in with what you're doing, right? Like one of the things that I was always taught was, Shakespeare, people are like, it's boring. I'm like, are you kidding me? People get stabbed to death all the time. It's about love. It's about greed. It's revenge. It's all these terrible things. Show an updated Shakespeare, do Richard III in World War II, and it's amazing, right? You can update the settings. They're timeless stories. They're timeless drama. And dance, I'm willing to wager, is probably something similar as well. There's plenty of dance that have been around for hundreds, if not thousands of years that tell stories. And it doesn't matter where you do it at. But I think that sometimes, people kind of get wrapped up in, that's not the way I was taught. Cool. The world isn't where you were. The world is where it is now. And we have to adapt to that. And if we don't, we lose that next generation because they get pissed off at us and wonder why we're so old and stupid.
Speaking along those same lines, Nicole, just really quickly as he was talking, I was thinking that there have been some dances that were traditionally done one way and then they were adapted, just like there have been cartoons that people have been up in arms because they have different minority characters and all in that space. So I just wondered your thoughts, because I do know that, some people may think of Swan Lake as a European piece, but there have been a number of times that it's been done by folks of a different culture. So I just wondering your thoughts about that when people do a art form that might have been created in one space, but it is adapted to another, whether that's like something adapted from Europe into African American culture or vice versa, African American adapted into US culture and everything. So I just wanted your thoughts around that.
I think it's very similar to what Greg was saying. When you talk about being able to adapt something and like, how do we learn? So it's that piece of learning. But I also, there's a lot of respect I have for this generation in terms of like the push for equity. And the telling of their own stories, where I do think there are certain fixed stories that are going to be in some ways phased out because they're losing interest. So, if you go to the ballet and it's the same ballet stories told the same way, that generation loses interest. Like, and, ballet is a great example of like being very white, being very, telling a certain story for so long. Now they're seeing these numbers decline, people attending the ballet because quite frankly, the people who are going are dying, they're getting old. And so how do you stay now? Ballet's like, how do we stay relevant? We need a Misty Copeland. We need we need these things and the hopes to stay relevant. But it usually is after the fact where they're already like at the decline. So I think going back to like, what's the dialogue that can happen between, the younger generation and the current generation is actually in these positions. I think the hardest struggle, I think, is the mentorship piece where there's these age gaps that don't communicate very well with each other. Certain generations just don't, they don't understand each other. There's certain generations that are like, oh yeah, I understand. It's not like they're sequential. It's like a grandparent talking to like a great grandchild might be a more of a closer, I don't know what that close, piece is, but I definitely think there's something to say to that, to how we respect the generation that's coming forward, because we're going to need, literally, you need them to, tell us what's relevant. And we do this at the studio for our shows. We ask the kids now, instead of me being like, hey, I want to do The Wiz. That was my era. Like, I asked them this year, what do you want to do? They said Lion King. And I'm like, okay, great. It was a great show because the kids could identify and they understood the characters, right? It wasn't me trying to explain and be like, do you know The Wiz? Is that, like me being myself of like how great The Wiz is. But for the kids, it's giving them that voice and giving them that autonomy in the sense of, what do you want to see? and then let's make it happen and let me work to help that. And that's really the direction that I'm taking Empower, is getting a lot of feedback from the, we have this generation and they have a lot to say. I want to know what they want to see, as opposed to me putting that out there. So it helps me as a teacher because I can't figure TikTok out, like, so tell me, and then I can give that, that back and forth, that dialogue that I think is really important. And I would have to say this, I have to hop off soon too, but
No.
Greg, I wanted to say something. Yeah.
Well, Nicole, it's funny you should say that, because The Lion King's just Hamlet.
I know.
And I love the fact that you use a repackaging story to discuss the repackaging that's necessary.
And they just redid the Lion King with Beyonce. So that's the whole, like, it became a thing because, but you're right.
And good stories, timeless stories, can be repackaged infinitely and sold infinite times. That's one of the reasons why Shakespeare is so timeless. Yeah, he was a Renaissance white guy in early modern England, but the stories can be carried anywhere to be told about universal themes of emotion, of suffering, and things of that nature. And Lion King is a perfect example. Disney went, oh, it's public domain. Let's steal that and make it about animals. Awesome. Great. Free. And we got all kinds. And James Earl Jones gets to play the king. I mean, how can you go wrong?
Yeah.
You can't go wrong with that. And Nicole, as you know, you've got to bounce off shortly as well. I was have a conversation recently about ballet, because I was talking to somebody that was of a taller height. I think they might have been around 5'7" or 5'8", and they were thinking that they were too tall for ballet. And I was thinking that Misty was taller than she actually is, because I think she's closer to like 5'5" or 5'4".
It's
like
the long legs that you think. The aesthetic is the longer legs, short torso, so you look taller. Usually the guys are shorter in ballet, so they want the girls to be short in ballet. Yeah. They don't want towering over the guys. So it is a thing. But ballet is it's way more aesthetics than anything else. And that's what keeps people out. That's the barrier to entry, is aesthetics.
It's the aesthetics, but I'm also thinking that there are probably times that is some taller folks that are in ballet that might be taller than that standard height, whatever that standard height is.
Standard companies know the costumes are cut a certain way. The corpse, that line of the corpse, the company dancers have to all be the same height. It's a thing. In traditional classical ballet, let me be very clear. Like, there are other ballet companies where they're more contemporary ballet, that they do allow for those different height. But if in most classical companies, it's all about the look, more so everyone being exactly in sync and looking exactly the same.
Well, if you tell folks how you can be reached and everything, and definitely any message of positivity that you've got. The other question I was going to get to, but I know you've got to bounce, is this notion of that inner critic and outer critic. Because I was actually going to ask both you and Greg, if you got time, definitely answer it. Because I was wondering whether there were folks that were you were having a hard time convincing them that you were going to open up this dance studio, and how you dealt with that. Because I know that even in my age, I sometimes face folks that will give you that reason that you shouldn't do the things that you want to do.
Yeah, my thing is I've learned to keep my circle very close and tight, to people who really do encourage and inspire me. And it goes back to, I say, a mission base. Like, I can come in, and these little ones, they, like, if I ever have doubts, like, I have a 3-year-old looking at me like, what's next, and that is the push and the drive. And I think people who have children or family, just that sense, or just that close friend of the people who are in your space. And I've just, the pandemic was something that really pushed you to be in space with people that that really love and care about you, and having that support system, because the naysayers are going to come no matter what. That's just the reality. That's the harsh reality. A lot of times that's out of their own insecurities too. So I find compassion and grace for other people when they do have that sense, when they may have to say something negative. So
Tell folks how they can reach Empower here in Durham, and how they can definitely
get so
and any shows that you may have come up.
So empowerdancestudio.com and empowerdancefoundation.org. We're also on Instagram and Facebook. We have a program that you can support. We have dancers that just went to LA, and some went to New York City. One for Debbie Allen Dance Academy, and the other one for Alvin Ailey Dance Theater of Harlem. So we're really just, looking for community support to continue to support these dancers and them following their dreams. So we are accepting donations for dancers to support their dreams too. So that's how to reach us and what's going on with Empower.
And a message of positivity and hope that you want to give. And I want to know, since he alluded to it, are you open to going on the trip to Mars with Greg if he takes you up there for the dance routine?
Yes. Absolutely. It's like, yes.
You are not the only person to
Tell you
say
all
that.
the
I think we're
shows
going
that
to
I
have a
watch.
long list of people who want to go. So,
Okay.
but don't worry.
Yeah,
I
just put me on the list. That's, I got a lot of work to do here on Earth still. So
Don't worry, don't worry. And honestly, Mark, to go to your question, the words positivity and how you deal with it, I'm going to quote a great philosopher. Look, haters are going to hate, hate, hate. You got to shake it off. You got to
yeah,
shake it off.
shake, shake, shake it
That's
up.
that. Yeah, that's all you got to do. They're always going to throw stuff at you. And I think Teddy Roosevelt put it best when he discussed being in the arena. Right? If you're the one in the arena, people going to throw rocks at you. They're always going to talk stuff about you, and so on and so forth. Right? If you're not in the arena with me, I don't need your criticism. I
Yep.
want to hear it.
Yep.
Because the thing is that you do not know what I'm going through. If you do, I'll listen, but that doesn't mean that you're right. And you got to stay true to yourself and keep going. And you get knocked down. Nicole, you're an entrepreneur, so you know this. Sometimes you get knocked down several times. It is what it is, right? So you got to get back up, dust yourself off, and keep going because you know you're doing the right thing.
Yes.
It's just that simple.
Yep. Nope. I couldn't agree more. Thank you.
There you go.
I appreciate it. And like I said, wrapping up, I know both of y'all have to leave and everything. This has been a great conversation. I hope that both of you will come back in the near future, whether it's this show or some of our other shows as well here on Pod TV. If there's any last words that you have of advice for entrepreneurs, since we are a entrepreneurial network, I know that both Kim and Nick are entrepreneurs as well. So I'll start with Nicole first and then come to you, Greg. But any message of positivity or a message of inspiration that you want to give to fellow entrepreneurs? So as you're heading out the door first, Nicole, I'll let you give that message of positivity that you want to give to entrepreneurs, because I do know that entrepreneurship is an important part of the Durham legacy, but just the business legacy in general. So any message you have for our future entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I ground yourself, make time for yourself. I think I wish, we put so much into our business, we put so much of ourselves into our work. It's also important to find the space for self-care and the space to care for your own personal well-being so that you can be better and be a better business owner. And whatever that means, even if it's taking 10 minutes at the beginning of the day to meditate, those moments are so important. It's going to help you be better. I think it's going to make you better. So don't be afraid to take the time.
Yeah. Definitely, Greg, before I get to these commercials to get us all out of here, what is your message of positivity and message of hope that you want to give to our fellow entrepreneurs?
Culture flows from the top down, and you're the one who sets it. If you're a backstabbing bastard, your staff will be too. If you're a liar, your staff will be as well. You attract the people that you are, and you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. If you spend time with people who are honest, who are self-assured, who are confident, not arrogant, you will be the same thing. If you spend time with people with those negative traits, you will embody those as well. And your entire organization will reflect your ideas, your concepts, and your culture. Choose carefully and choose wisely. But if you do choose wisely, it will last long after you're gone.
Yep, I appreciate that. And I know that my cousin appreciates being part of your staff and all. I was glad to give y'all this time to be part of this conversation. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about this warp technology as it is continued to be developed. And who knows, maybe I'll get a chance to visit from Durham, North Carolina to Atlanta, where Emmett and you are based in that box car or whatever we're going to call it in about another 10 or 15 years. So I'll just have to jump in the box car. Maybe I'll go over there and catch the bus or get in the car first and grab Nicole before heading over that way and everything. So we'll see if we can make that trip in the next 10 to 15 years or along those lines.
One can hope. One can hope.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Thank you so much, Mark. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thanks
it
a lot.
as well. Bye.
All right, bye.
So we're ready to get on out of here. And definitely that was a great conversation. And like I said, we're going to go out with a commercial from one of our founders, that being Nick Palveda and a National Pension.
One of the things that business owners forget a lot is to prepare for their own retirement.
Hi, my name's Nick Palavita, and today I'm with a very special guest, a certified financial planner, a chartered retirement plan specialist, and president of National Pension Partners, Max Couliet. Max, tell me what you do at National Pension Partners.
Well, Nick, we help successful small businesses and professionals put together retirement plans that provide them the maximum retirement benefits and big tax deductions at the same time.
Well, how do you do this?
Well, we get on an internet conferencing system with the client. We review their goals, what they want to accomplish, and then put together strategies to help them in implementing a retirement plan that benefits them, not everybody else.
Well, that sounds really good, but how much does this cost?
Well, it's really not bad because the first consultation is free. That allows us to go through and discover whether this strategy works for that business and for you as the business owner, and helping you maximize your retirement.
Well, Max, how do we get this free appointment?
It's really pretty simple, Nick. You can either go to our website below or call us at 877-252-1692, and then we can set up a time with either myself, Nick, or one of our other retirement plan specialists, another CPA or advisor in the office, to go over this with you and make sure it fits for you.
Hi, my name is Lewis Haupt. I work with National Pension Partners, and I work with businesses to allow them to put the maximum away that they can for themselves and to save taxes.
Hi, I'm Brad Coyle, and I'm the brokerage manager at National Pension Partners. We're always analyzing plan fund choices in order to ensure the participant's success.
If you want more information on how we can help you and your business put more money away in a retirement plan than you ever thought possible, contact us at the website below or call us at 877-252-1692.
I'd like you to imagine with me, if you will, opening an app where you can collaborate with like-minded individuals from around the world, get inspiration and in-app tools to launch and grow your business, as well as share your knowledge and earn compensation, all in one app. Well, the name of that app is Truso, short for Truly Social. Hi, I'm Matthew Newman, the founder and CEO of Truso. A new concept in social media, Truso is designed from the ground up to be a platform that's both social and empowering for all its users. How exactly do we do that? I'm glad you asked. First, Truso brings the world together via video. Psychologists assert that video provides a significantly more effective connection than audio only. When you enter a community on Truso, you're face to face. Second, on Truso, you don't have to have 1 million followers to monetize. Our business model allows all hosts and moderators to monetize, no matter the size of your following, by 1, producing fee-based content, and 2, inviting others to join the platform as subscribers. Even more, Truso has an in-app resource library with over 100 free resources, forms, and documents to help you build your brand and grow your business. Third, Truso is inclusive. The deaf and hard of hearing communities make up 360 million people worldwide. Unlike audio-only apps, Truso embraces its community, providing a networking platform that allows them to participate via video and closed captioning. We even have a deaf and hard of hearing foundation in the works as well. Fourth, Truso is both social and safe. We refer to Truso as a virtual extension of the beauty shop, barbershop, and brainchild of the community. A place where there's laughter, along with wisdom, growth-oriented conversation, and genuine connections in a safe space. Truso even has proprietary security to ensure we maintain a safe environment for everyone. Where are we at now? Truso is live, y'all. We've launched in beta, and we're acquiring users daily. We have an incredible development and marketing team, plus amazing celebrity influencers at the table, helping us spread the word around the globe, beginning within the African diaspora and beyond by creating a safe space for growth, connection, and collaboration. We're truly excited about Truso. We've created something special for which there is a global market. And we invite you to embark on this journey with us as a shareholder. The future for Truso is truly bright. Join us and let's go there together.
At Shirley Lou and Associates, powered by First Financial Security, our mission is to help all people achieve financial security and peace of mind.
My team and I are here to help you reach financial security tomorrow and for generations to come.
She is one of the most sincere and compassionate people that I will ever meet in my life. She sincerely wants to build a legacy where no young woman that she meets is left destitute, that they are able to be self-sufficient, to provide for a family in an emergency, to build for their future and for our future generations.
At Shirley Lewin Associates, we are changing the face of insurance and retirement plans. Our mission is to lead, empower, and grow. We are the home of tax-free retirement. We provide comprehensive planning for businesses, rollovers for retirees, and individual personal financial planning.
I'm a very people-oriented person. It's important for me to make sure my clients feel in a safe environment, make sure I feel in a safe environment, that I can trust the people that I'm working with. And I feel that here working with Shirley and my team. These people are more like family to me.
We believe entrepreneurship is a possibility for all walks of life.
Reach out to us. We would love to have a conversation to see how we can help.
The only trick you need to save time and money is to shop at Aldi. Aldi. Shop differently. Limitless length plus volume. Sensational from every angle. New Lash Sensational Sky High Mascara. Only from Maybelline, New York. Everything that touches your baby should be this comforting. Pampers Swaddlers. The #1 choice of hospitals is 2 times softer. All right, Trivago. Find me a hotel somewhere in Thailand where I can wake up with a view of the ocean. Awesome. The future. It's impossible to see. And when it's finally here, it might not be what you'd expect. It might just be better. Introducing Luxury Electric. Introducing Lucid Air. We're for those who love to discover, who don't need to travel to find something new, and who know when you spend less, you can discover even more at TJ Maxx and Marshalls. Smooth, velvety chocolate wrapped in precious gold. Ferrero Rocher.